Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Wednesday, the Leading Change episode this week with Harri Tunturivuori. Hey Harri, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Happy to be back.
So, Harri, on Wednesdays we talk about change because, of course, as Scrum Masters, we are constantly working with change. It can be, individual level, team level, even organizational level, but we're always working with change. So, walk us through one of those stories of change, a process of change you were involved with, and as you go through that story, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Sure. Yes. So this was again a few years back. I was hired as a Scrum Master for a team, and when I got in, I discovered that they had been starting to implement Scrum or attempting to implement Scrum, I should say. But yeah, I don't think they were using it really effectively. They did. I think it's quite common, but they had changed the title of the roles. So the previous project manager, they were product owners now. They were holding a daily status meeting. They called it daily scrum or something, daily stand-up, I think. They had a Kanban board or Scrum board. And they were using some of the practices from Scrum that way. But they were, I think, we're missing the most important things like values and principles. And
how did you notice that? It's quite clear. At least the naming of the project managers as product owners is a great example of missing something critical in what Scrum is. But what were the other signs that told you that, okay, they are doing the daily, they have this sprint, they have a board, but they're not really doing Scrum? Like, what were those signs that you saw?
The first was, I think it was the command and control from the product owners. That was that was one thing, and yeah, the daily stand-ups. Yeah, there was, as I said, they were daily status meetings, and I think that was the things, and there were no retrospectives. That was I don't know why, but it was quite fast. It became quite obvious that they had just somebody had read the Scrum guide, skimmed it through, and renamed the roles and started having the meeting.
And continued having the same thing, but just with daily meetings.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was because I also saw that the team members, well, of course, you cannot guarantee that team member will be engaged, but they were definitely not engaged. And there was no goal from the sprint. I think they had, yeah, there was sprint planning meeting, but they were more like task planning. So which tasks are we going to finish these 2 sprints and so on, or this sprint. Yeah, that was the thing, I think.
So that's how the story starts. You get into the team, you start to observe, you see that they are actually not really doing Scrum. So what happened next?
Well, I think the first thing I did, I did take a step back to kind of course, make sure that my observations were right and so on. And I started to think that what can I do to help them and so on. I did speak with, again, speaking with people. So I was talking to all the team members, both in the group and then individually also. And also I spoke with my manager, and I spoke with the product owners. And yeah, I think it became clear then that people didn't understand the purpose of Scrum. The team, I think, they understood the purpose of it, but the people around didn't really understand it. And yeah, there was lack of how would I say, like understanding of the roles and Scrum. So what I did I think one of the first thing I did was that I started to educate the team and stakeholders on the framework and practices. I also went around in the organization with my little PowerPoint deck, which I spoke to them and explained that this is how Scrum works and this is what you can expect from us and this is what we expect from you back. And so I think that was a good way to get buying also from around the organization. But then the team also got and we had the same image of what Scrum is. So because many people have learned it in different places, I think that's a good discussion to have if you're a new Scrum Master in any team. I think just how do you see on Agile and Scrum?
Also,
So,
because
yeah.
it creates a language, right? Like when we have
Yeah.
a conversation about, okay, so what is this role really about, right? It creates a
Mm.
language. It starts to build like a shared model of how we work together. And you
Yeah.
said that you went around the organization with your PowerPoint deck, as you said. How did the rest of the organization perceive it? Because you were saying, hey, this is what we're going to do for you, but you were also saying, this is what we need from you, right? Like, how did that conversation with the rest of the organization go?
I think that it went quite smooth. There wasn't much pushback from anybody, at least, and so I think it went very good. So I usually I had the first I talked to some manager of a certain organization or part, and then I got the go to have this presentation with them, and then I had like a half an hour where I explained, gathered more people around and explained very briefly about what Agile and Scrum is, and that we don't do the long term plans in the same way, and also the positive parts for them that they can come with changes quite late and so on. And then afterwards, usually there was somebody stayed and talked with me, and mostly were interested in knowing and learning. There wasn't much pushback, so
And that's
it
also a
was
great way
quite
to
smooth.
find out who the early adopters are, because those that stay behind and ask more questions and want to learn more, of course, those are the early adopters. And they
Yep,
can be huge allies for us in the change that we need to bring into the team.
yep.
So how did that change unfold? So you had the training, you talked to the rest of the organization, the team had finally a shared language and a shared model of what Scrum was supposed to be. What happened next?
Well, the first thing uh, after this, maybe it was before. I don't even remember the order of things here, but one of the first things that I did, which the team didn't have before, was to hold retrospectives regularly. Because and for me, that's the I've been asked sometimes, if you could only keep one thing from Agile, what would you keep? And and then I usually answer retrospectives. That's the most important in my mind, because and I have the belief that if you just have retrospectives and scrap everything else, then the good part from the rest will come as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a generative function for the team to learn, right? Like, even if the team doesn't know what Kanban is, just have a retrospective and then you will learn. If they don't know what
mm,
Scrum is, or, they don't know about test-driven development, just do something, retrospect, learn. And of course, that's not necessarily easy when the product owner is a project manager. So how did you introduce the idea, the concept of retrospectives to those that were more, let's say, traditional project management minded?
I, that was also quite nice because I was empowered by my manager, and he was supporting me there. So I did not really have to talk them into it. They didn't go to retrospectives though. So it was only me and the team, so to say, without the product owners. But there was no pushback from them that you should use the time to develop or something like that. So I didn't have to convince them in any special way. So I think that was nice, and I think that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And having, of course, the support of your manager is one of those boosters, right? An amplifier, because they've got your back. And whenever there are questions, you can go to them and you can clarify it with whatever stakeholders might be asking questions. It's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Harri.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.